On the latest episode of The Bill Barnwell Show, I talked to ESPN The Magazine's Mina Kimes about the latest episode of The Bachelor. Hot stuff. You can check out the show on iTunes or by going to the ESPN app on your phone.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you live on ESPN Radio, as I love to do every weekday on 98.7 FM in New York, 710 ESPN in L.A., and, of course, nationwide on ESPN Radio's Sirius XM, Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today because I'm coming at you live from the site of this weekend's NBA All-Star Game. The festivities scheduled to take place in New Orleans, Louisiana, tonight with ESPN Celebrity Basketball Game, tomorrow night with the skills contest, the three-point shooting contest, the slam dunk contest, live on TNT, and then, of course, Sunday's game. And we understand that All-Star Game is something to look forward to because there's Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook to look forward to. But obviously we have to lead with different stories today, and I got to tell you something. Contrary to popular belief and what Sports Center and First Take and every other show under the sun would want to lead to as it pertains to Darrelle Revis for the New York Jets, I don't feel like leading with Darrelle Revis. And I'm going to tell you why I don't feel like leading with Darrelle Revis. Because I think the story is bogus. I think it's nonsense. I think it's much ado about nothing. And it shouldn't even be blasted over the news wires the way that it has been. Let me get this straight. You're an NFL player who's been universally recognized as being a mercenary, which means you are all about your money. You're building real estate properties and upgrading real estate properties in Pittsburgh. 2:30 in the morning, are you at a nightclub? No. Are you drinking someplace? No. What you did was go and look at the property that you're investing in. Somebody notices you're Darrelle Revis, ultimately gets in your face. You drop them, take the cell phone and throw it someplace. And because of that, you got 4 felony charges, one of them being theft. Really? Really? I mean, listen, we don't advocate violence on this network, and we shouldn't advocate violence anywhere. But let's key in on that word, advocate. We don't advocate it. In other words, you don't encourage it. Nobody's going to deny from that on occasion. It's necessary. If you want to bother somebody and get in their face and bother them, see, this is what I believe happened. I have no evidence of this. I was not there, and I understand it, but don't tell me that Darrelle Revis, who is all about his money, who's scheduled to get $13 million next season, who had a horrible year this year and still due to get a $2 million signing bonus next month on top of the $13 million salary, is going to jeopardize all of that because he wants to get into a fight with somebody in Pittsburgh, which, by the way, has never happened in his entire career. I don't believe it. I'm not attaching any credibility to it. And I think it's a damn shame to his reputation that it's got to be permeated all over the news wires. Now on the more significant stuff. Tony Romo. I'm bringing up this name because it's very, very relevant to the New York and L.A. markets. Do you realize that Tony Romo is looking forward to being let go by the Dallas Cowboys? This is what he's anticipating. He's not anticipating that he's going to be traded by the Cowboys. He's anticipating that he's going to be let go. And do you know that the Tony Romo, that is 78-49 in the regular season as a starting quarterback in the NFL, do you know that this Tony Romo, this same Tony Romo that can't win more than 2 playoff games in his career, do you know that chances are he's not even thinking about playing in New York or L.A.? Because in New York, there's Eli Manning, but then there's the New York Jets. And then after that, it's the Los Angeles Rams and Phillip Rivers and the San Diego Chargers, who are now the L.A. Chargers. Basically, you have the Rams and the Jets, who desperately appear to need a quarterback, some immediate help. And you ain't thinking about going to either of those teams. So both of those markets flat out stink, which rakes my nerves. because you would think that the Jets would get it together instead of quitting on Todd Bowles the way that they did. You would think that the Rams would get it together instead of holding on for dear life until they were forced to let go of the perpetually inept Jeff Fisher, who coached in the NFL for 22 years, missed the playoffs 6 times, and it wasn't until public pressure was brought to bear on his sorry butt that he was finally canned. These are the kind of things that go on in this market, and I need somebody to explain to me why the hell that is. I don't understand for the life of me. Then in a market as big as New York City, in a market as big as Los Angeles, California, that somehow, some way, you have to damn near bring out a guillotine before somebody comes to their senses and say, you know what, maybe it's time for us to move in a different direction. I mean, I don't understand it. I really don't get it. It just drives me absolutely nuts. If you're inept and you are proving to be inept, you would think that those two markets, more so than any other market in America, would have a low tolerance level. But it seems to have the highest. And I don't understand it. Is it that we're so large as a market in New York and L.A., there are so many things to do and there are so many distractions and we're not paying attention? I doubt that. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. This 866-729-3776. I just don't understand it. I mean, you got 2 franchises in the 2 largest markets in America desperately needing a quarterback. And this dude, 36 years of age, career on the downside, bad back and all, and forget about him coming to the markets. He ain't thinking about you. It ain't the other way around. How? How does that happen? I really, really want to know. And then you got on top of it all, you got Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, who I've met and I've liked as a person. I mean, the biggest news he's made is that he's the ambassador to Great Britain. I mean, what the hell? Donald Trump gets in office, he's the ambassador. How's that going to help the Jets? Unless you want to make the argument that his absence is going to help the Jets, I don't see how him being some ambassador is going to help the Jets. What the hell is he going to do? Get cricket players to come and play football? I mean, what's they going to do? That's what they do over there, right? They play cricket. Am I right? I think. Somebody tell me. I don't know. What did you say, Nuno? My producer's in my ear talking to me. I don't understand what you said. And soccer, I apologize. I know they play soccer, of course. But cricket just sounded funnier. All I'm saying is these are the concerns that I have. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm wondering about. (866-729-ESPN). That's 866-729-3776. By the way, I have not forgotten about that conversation with the Texas bathroom bill because a lot of people were emailing and tweeting me and on Facebook and beyond, and everybody's been going off because of yesterday's show. When I talked about Texas Governor Greg Abbott, talking about the NFL needs to watch itself because they're walking a very thin line. He's saying that mind your manners, tend to your business with NFL stuff. Stop worrying about politics. You've got no place in this. That's what he was saying, the Texas governor, because the NFL put out a statement basically saying that they are inclusionary, not exclusionary, and any state that wants to vote in favor of enforcing laws that require you to be identified as it pertains to your sex by what's on your birth certificate, as opposed to addressing you from a transgender perspective, meaning honoring that. They're going to have a problem in those states when it comes to the bathroom bill. You're a transgender, you're a male, and you change yourself to female. Texas, that's not good enough. Your birth certificate says you're a male. That's what the hell you are. The NFL is claiming that's not inclusionary. They have a problem with it. And as a result, if you want to do business with the NFL, they're going to have a problem with you. If you adopt such laws, the Texas governor is saying, hell with you. This is what we do. This is politics. I believe that the Texas governor is operating from a higher moral ground here. The NFL is clearly about business and ingratiating itself with as many pockets and pocketbooks as they can. The governor of Texas, even though he is a politician, is speaking largely on behalf of his constituency, who it appears supports his vision. And in that regard, he thinks he's coming from a higher moral perspective. And I don't know how anybody can argue that. But I'm sure y'all might try. 866-729 ESPN's the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. Back with your phone calls in a minute on ESPN Radio.
Barry Jenkins is nominated for not only Best Director, but also Best Adapted Screenplay.
It's surreal, man. You know, I've had a very privileged experience with this film.
The big screen's biggest night, the Oscars, and Cinephile will be there. Get all the details at Cinephile, the Adnan Virk movie podcast. Available now on the ESPN app and iTunes. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Before I get back to the phone calls, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Number one, I watched President Trump's press conference yesterday. Say what you will about him. It's damn near must-see television. He is straight comedy, man. He is straight comedy. I mean, all over the place. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's all I'm going to say about that. Number two, let me say this as well. And this is important to note. I spoke yesterday publicly about Charles Oakley and how I was very, very disappointed when after the meeting he comes out and he compares James Dolan to Donald Sterling. It's just counterproductive on so many levels. But I want to emphasize this on behalf of Charles Oakley. I think it's unnecessary for him to say those incendiary things. I think it accomplishes nothing. But he's not wrong in terms of wanting a public apology from James Dolan. He's not wrong about that. In the interest of fairness, a public apology, a statement on the character issues as part of a settlement agreement should have been addressed. And that should have happened before the league's statement. I want to emphasize that. It should have been addressed before the league statement. I don't have a problem with anything that Adam Silver has done. He conferred with Oakley's attorneys when they couldn't reach Oakley because Oakley was asleep. All of that's true. But I got to tell you, Oakley is right when he says he wants an apology. If Dolan could say something to him, and I'm talking to Barry Watkins and Jonathan Sopranowicz and all of these other folks in communications and PR for the New York Knicks and Madison Square Garden who are experts at what they do and genuine good guys who just have an obligation to look out for James Dolan. That's who they work for. There's nothing wrong with that. I would implore them for the New York Knicks, regardless of anything else. I don't think Oakley should be going this far. I don't think he should be comparing James Dolan to Donald Sterling. I think that's wrong. Oakley is not right about that. But he is right by saying that if the man insulted me publicly without knowing me, he should apologize publicly, not just privately. Now, James Dolan doesn't have to show up at a press conference. James Dolan doesn't have to capitulate to Oakley to that degree. But if you're going to lift the ban at Madison Square Garden and allow him back into Madison Square Garden and leave him alone, you could acknowledge, I spoke out of turn. I don't know what's going on with this man in his life. I never met him even until for the first time when we were in Adam Silver's office the other day. I spoke out of turn. I was wrong in that regard. I apologize. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think Oakley's going to get it, and I think he's got to put on his big boy pants and accept that. And it's no sense in alienating everybody else around you because of it. But he's not wrong. If you insult somebody publicly and you find out you were wrong, you should apologize publicly. When I got on Carmelo's behind, when he was in Brazil for the Olympics, and he reached out to me to correct the record because I hadn't called him, I went on the air and acknowledged it and apologized. I apologized to folks associated with Bountygate when I thought they were guilty of sin, and come to find out that the National Football League and Roger Goodell had been overzealous and reacted inappropriately. It's very, very rare that I am wrong. I mean, stop the presses when it happens. It just doesn't happen very often. I'm usually right. But miracles do happen. On occasion, I am wrong. And when that happens, I apologize. That's called manning up. And James Dolan, in his 60s, and a billionaire, should be man enough to do the same. To the calls we go at 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Let's go to Brandon in South Carolina. You're live at Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Brandon, talk to me.
What's up, Stephen A. Now, I wanted to talk about the bathroom topic, and it's a coincidence that the NFL decided to rear its ugly head in the same manner during All-Star Week, as well as Jordan's birthday being today, too. Now, I love Adam Silver. I feel like he's a great commissioner. He's amazing for the league, and that moment he said that Donald Sterling was banned for life, and the emphasis he put on that life, I'm like, hey, this is a good guy. But when he decided to take the All-Star game out of Charlotte, it kind of dimmed the light on the city of Charlotte, and it made Charlotte look really bad based off a law that came down from Barack Obama's administration or whatever. And you have plenty of states, like Will said yesterday on First Take, they're 50-50 on this. This isn't a solidified matter as Adam Silver tried to make it seem like. And he obviously has good intentions, but everybody's not thinking the way that Adam Silver's thinking. And I feel like
let me interject. You know what I think's going on, Brandon? I think Adam Silver, the NBA, and these leagues in general, what they're saying is it's not about the issue itself. All they're trying to say is we're inclusionary. We want everybody involved. And it's not like we're going to sit up there and say, you're transgender, so we don't want your money. You're homosexual or bisexual, we don't want your money. You're this or that, we don't want your money. Their attitude is they take money from everybody, so they need to support what's deemed to be inclusionary, because it would be hypocritical to do otherwise, unethical and amoral as far as they're concerned, because if everyone matters, then that's the way it should be. That's their position, and I think that's whether we agree with it or not, Brandon, I think we have to look at it that way. You feel me?
Yeah, now I understand that, and I totally agree. I'm a people person. It's always about the people. If everybody operated with love, it'd be such a greater world. I agree with you, but I just feel like Adam Silver just delved so deep into politics. And one aspect, or how I want you to look at this, is that Michael Jordan was in the middle of this. Michael Jordan is not a senator. He's not a representative. He can't change the laws.
He couldn't change the law, and he was fighting. He was fighting to keep that game in Charlotte, man. That was a devastating blow to Michael Jordan and the Hornets.
Yeah, no, I love my state and make us look bad, but let me break it down to you like this. Just like when the All-Star game, back when Stern was still commissioner, back when it was in Texas at Jerry World, how you going to have Jerry Jones in the middle of that, and then you going to tell him, hey, get something done with the governor? I just felt like Adam Silver delved so deep into politics that it's just different. Or even Magic in L.A.
I got it. I got you, Brandon. I got to run, and I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. But I think what you're missing is that money talks, man, and people with the deeper pockets get to influence politicians. Why the hell you think you got lobbyists on Capitol Hill? They're basically like legal bribers. I mean, tell me what else are lobbyists. Tell me what is a lobbyist. A lobbyist is somebody that's licensed to bribe you. They can slice it any way they want to. You are literally being paid to display and push and exert the interest of those who are generating revenue for you by paying you. And your job is to go on Capitol Hill and influence the politicians to the best of your ability. And we've legalized it in this country to a great, great degree, to the point where I happen to believe that's a big reason why anybody will want to get into politics. Because there's a lot of money to be made there. Because the lobbyists will take care of you, depending on whose interest you serve. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Back with more of your phone calls in a minute with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Phones, we go right here with Stephen A. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up as always. It says 866-729-3776. I'll get into more specifics about this weekend's NBA All-Star festivities live from New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where I'm at right now. And I want to know, and I'm going to ask you, especially in hour number 2, what you're most interested in seeing. Want to see Russell Westbrook on the court with Kevin Durant at the same time? Or with all of the Golden State Warriors, the 4 All-Stars plus Russell Westbrook? You, Steve Kerr, do you want to do that? You, Russell Westbrook, do you want Steve Kerr to try and do that? You, Russell Westbrook, how you going to react to Kevin Durant once you see him? Y'all teammates for this weekend now. Could be very, very, very interesting. Make no mistake about it. Let's go back to the phones. Eddie in Long Island, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Eddie, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Stephen A? Love your show, man. And one thing before I get started, how's your mom feeling?
She's doing all right, man. Thank you for asking. Go ahead.
Okay. You were talking about the Darrelle Revis situation. You're right. It's a bunch of hogwash, and they need to stop bringing that stuff up and trying to report that kind of stuff and report something different. But also on the All-Star game this weekend.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the All-Star game this weekend. It's going to be very difficult for Russell to go in that lineup if they have all 4 of those guys on the court at the same time. It would be very difficult for him. And I think maybe Kevin Durant should take this weekend to reach out to Russell and just, apologize to him, man up and say, look, man, the way I did it was wrong, and go from there.
That's the real issue in all of this. I personally don't like the shift in the balance of power. I like to see the stars go at one another as opposed to seeing them join hands. But the other thing for me is, the biggest thing for me is how he left. That's your little brother. That's what you called him. No phone call. No face-to-face discussion. Let him know that you were leaving. None of that. Just left. And you just totally, like Kenny Smith said on my show First Take this morning. Kenny Smith said it best. He said, look, man, total disrespect. You said, I ain't winning with you. Why do I need to be here? It's true. It's what happened. No other way around it. Rakesh in Seattle, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Rakesh?
Marty, I'm doing good. I took the green smoothie you were talking about a few months ago. My friend, Hibbity Hoppertus, huge change, my friend. It is very, very good.
Let me tell you something right now. Her name is J.J. Smith. She's a best-selling author, the 10-Day Green Smoothie Drink, and she's got a new book out now. They're both New York Times bestsellers, and I'm telling you right now, she's the one that tipped me off with those green smoothies, man. Changed my life. I know that much.
My friend, I'm looking like I'm almost 25 again, my friend. Anyways, my friend, last few days I've been listening to you. You've been giving James Dolan too much of fuss, my friend. This is too much to me. One caller, he could even say anything back to you. I'll tell you why he needs the blame. You say that he brought in Phil Jackson, very accomplished guy, 11 rings, all the blings, but he's not accomplished. He's only accomplished as coach and player, my friend, not as GM. He has no GM experience, novice GM, my friend. So James Dolan hired a guy who never had a job before, that kind of job before in his life, and then he pays him 5-6 times more than anyone else, my friend. I give James Dolan that blame for that hire. I know it is saying that maybe Phil Jackson's and master, he can do it, but someone who never do it before, that I blame James Dolan, my friend. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, I'm not saying James Dolan is not at fault. What I'm saying is that we were all over him. We literally were ready to protest outside the corridors of Madison Square Garden to get him out if something had not been done. He brought Phil Jackson on board. When he did that, the city clamored for James Dolan to step the hell out of the way and to leave basketball matters to somebody who knows basketball. When Phil was hired, we supported it. When Phil was given title as president of basketball operations, we supported it. James Dolan said, I'm going to let the man complete his contract and stay out the way until then, because that's what you folks asked for. That's not a lie. It's true. We did ask for it. As disgusting as it appears right now, it's exactly the truth. And we got to own that. I don't think we get around that, man. I just don't.
True, but I promise you, if those two guys still in New York Knicks will never change, my friend. They always draft to always compete to win. Right now, they never build to the draft, my friend.
I got you. I appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you so much. Let's go to David in New York. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. David, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, Stephen A? It's good to hear from you. Thanks for taking my call. I just had a comment about this thing going on with Texas. And I had a question for you first, actually. I wanted to know, you keep using the term moral to explain the governor's decision about this. And I just wanted to know if you could define that, because I was a little bit unclear. My background is that I'm a physician, and I've worked with transgendered individuals for probably about 15 years, both transgender women and men. So I wanted to see what you would explain as far as what this morality that you're talking about is.
No. What I'm saying is the governor's attack against the NFL appears to be him coming from a higher moral position. What he's saying is that I'm speaking on behalf of me and my constituency. You're speaking on behalf of your dollars. That's what he's trying to say. In other words, he and his constituency, he's trying to say has an ingrained, genuine belief in where we stand. Whereas you're the NFL, you're flowing whatever wind takes you to the most money is where you're flowing. That's what he's saying. Yeah. That's what I meant by moral.
Thank you for explaining that to me, because I was a little bit confused. I thought they were talking about morality. You were mentioning morality with regards to gender identity, which I thought was a different topic altogether. But I do think that the NFL is going to be about money, and that's their right. But also I don't think the governor is as educated as he needs to be, and I'm sure he's making his decisions based on his own constituents, based on his own need for money and power and those kind of things. And that's just what the NFL is doing as well, and that's their right. If they want to be more inclusionary, they have the right to do that, and they can put their money whenever they want to.
That's fair. It's not about the right to do anything. Nobody's debating that, because both sides have a right to take their position. And I'm certainly not oblivious to the fact that a politician is thinking about money and votes and all of that other stuff. What I'm saying, however, is that the constituency, by and large, are made up of people who have an ingrained belief, no matter how ignorant, ill-informed, or oblivious they may be at times. They have an ingrained belief, and that's the moral position he's coming from. They believe this stuff. We believe this stuff in Texas. You are about money. Don't put yourself in this argument. That's what he's saying to the NFL, David.
I appreciate you, man. Keep on.
Thanks a lot, bro. Appreciate you. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. We'll continue talking about this Texas bathroom bill, their beef with the NFL, the state of Texas beef with the NFL via Governor Greg Abbott. We're talking about the All-Star game coming up, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and others. We're definitely talking about Darrelle Revis, and he's supposedly in trouble with the law with something that I consider to be utterly bogus, okay? And obviously, this Tony Romo aspiring to be in a different destination, knowing that the Dallas Cowboys are going to let him go. All of that and more to talk about up next with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We catch up with breaking news in Montreal with the coaching change there, and hear from Pat Maroon of the Edmonton Oilers and Jason Chimera of the New York Islanders.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Back to the phones we go at 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Let's go to Ed in Pittsburgh. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Ed?
Hey, Stephen A. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. Talk to me.
I'm calling this comment by Draymond Green and the way it is being handled. I was listening to your conversation yesterday with, I don't know what the gentleman's name, not Max, the other gentleman that's on First Take with you sometime.
Go ahead. Just Will King.
Anyway, Anyway, the way, first of all, the way white folks, when we bring up slavery, it's like an event that's over with and stopped, and when it stopped, everything stopped. And every time we reference that, they make the incident that we're using to reference it as an isolated incident. So we say, okay, we can't go back and use that. And white people have become masters of causing us to disconnect, of connecting something that white folks do. And he had you disconnect from that. And you can't disconnect that because when
I disagree with you, Ed. I disagree with you, Ed. And I'm going to tell you why I disagree. You and I have had this discussion before, and I want to emphasize this. We've had this discussion times in the past, a year ago and beyond.
Yeah.
Let me preface my comments by saying this. I respect the hell out of you. And everything that you say makes valid points. I'm not trying to dismiss any point that you're making in terms of its validity. What I'm saying is we have to be sensitive to the fact that we force folks to adopt things on a case-by-case basis without feeling the need to connect. Because if they don't do that, then they have to absolutely summarily concede that everything is pertaining to race. They're going to be diametrically opposed to that. And if you and I, being the honest, fair-minded individuals that we are, while recognizing how prevalent racism is, you can't knock a race of individuals for saying, wait a minute, every single thing we do ain't about that. Sometimes it's about something else. White folks have a right to come to their own defense when everything that they do has some kind of racial connotation attached to it. If they vehemently and adamantly believe otherwise, they do have a right, Ed, to make that point.
Well, they do have a right. I'm not dismissing that. But when they make that right by disconnecting a reality that we're coming from. If he just said, okay, I don't agree with what he says, but when he tries to disconnect slavery was over with mentality, that happened in the past, and we can't reach and connect that, well, why is he doing that? Just make your point. I don't agree with that point, but don't disconnect, because it's like just stick the pin in me, and you're going to determine how I'm going to react to you sticking the pin.
Let me throw this at you, Ed, and see what you got, and see what you got with this before I go. And I'll just take an answer whether or not you agree or disagree, and then we'll revisit the conversation another time. Okay?
Okay, man. Right. I appreciate that, Steve.
Now check this out. When when God created the world, He also created the devil. Did He not?
Yes, sir.
And for every reaction, there's a polar and opposite reaction. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if you have an abundance of African Americans who will not hesitate to bring up race, particularly with a bevy of issues that they may have been encountered, do you not expect and completely understand how the folks on the other side of the fence who would happen to be white would be diametrically opposed to that, and vehemently so, because they're sitting there? I literally had white people say to me, what the hell do I have to do with what went on in the 60s? I was born in 1980, blah, 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 blah. Even though you and I can have an answer, can we sit here and deny that we can understand where they're coming from with that?
Well, I've never been presented with that question, but my answer to that, Steve, would be this. For them to come with that mentality, to me, is promoting the system, because whether they were born back there or not, the results produced today prove that racism is alive in the world. For them to think that because they weren't back there, they're still receiving the benefits today from it. So they can't disconnect the progress that they are receiving. The thing they are receiving is connected. So for them to make that statement, to me, is an uneducated disrespect mentality that they're putting on us in this country by saying, what do I got to do with that? That's ludicrous for them to think that way. My opinion.
You have valid points. I don't totally agree with you, but I get where you're coming from. I respect where you're coming from, and we'll revisit this conversation, Ed, at a later date. Let's go to Ricky in Manhattan. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Ricky, go ahead.
Hey, welcome, Stephen A., man. Thanks for having me on your show.
Go ahead.
Hey, I've been listening to you the last couple of days, and unusual for a sports guy to get into social issues, but I think it's kind of cool relating to sports. And so I listened to you say that the governor has moral high ground, and you explained that a little bit today. So you were saying that you have 2 daughters, 10 nieces, and you also, like so many people, don't want those people in the bathroom, right?
Not saying, I was saying like it would give me cause to pause. But the more you educate yourself in it, like for example, when that father called and talked about his daughter and what, his daughter has to go through and what he lives in fear, I would be very, very sensitive to that. And that's something that could alter my form of thinking and make me significantly more sentimental. Mm-hmm. I did acknowledge that too, but go ahead.
Cool. I appreciate that. That's why I kept listening today, because I think your views you take a position, but yet you learn and you take feedback. I mean, the same people like you that said, hey, I'd have a problem with that, don't forget, thought the same thing, and still many of them, including Lieutenant Governor Patrick, feel the same way about African Americans in many cases. They don't want those people in the water fountains. They don't want those people in their bathrooms, at their lunch counters. So I just warn you of the slippery slope that these people will go. So today it's a transgender. Who's going to be there tomorrow? Stephen A., have a great weekend.
It's a very valid point on your part, Ricky, because there's no doubt that other people, that abundance of people feel that way, no question. But my retort to that would be, you're talking about folks feeling certain ways about African Americans simply due to the color of their skin. Transgender, whatever happens, whatever's going on inside of you, that's open to debate. I have no position on that whatsoever. I'm ignorant. I'm not knowledgeable about that. But if you're a transgendered individual, you literally had an operative procedure to change your gender. Literally, you actually did that. That's an entirely different scenario than somebody born black. And you have some folks in the gay community that try to compare their plight to that of African Americans. Well, guess what? Regardless of who you are as a gay individual, it's your behavior that ultimately lets the world know who you are. I'm not saying that it's any less sufficient. I'm saying it's entirely different than somebody literally looking at you and because you have a darker pigmentation deciding to judge you in a very incendiary and malicious fashion. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, you can make any case you want to, but it ain't nothing on this planet that has been harder to deal with than being black. Don't you doubt it. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. Hour number 2 coming up next. We'll get more into this All-Star game week, this All-Star weekend. Plus, we'll continue talking about the subjects we've been talking about. Hour number 2 with Stephen A. up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app. The NBA All-Star Game this Sunday.
Here's Curry behind the back. Half-court heave on its way, and he hits it!
Coverage begins Sunday at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.